As far as quarantine and isolation, once again, quarantine is for people who are at risk of the disease because they've been exposed. Isolation is for people who actually have tested positive or are ill with symptoms of the disease. And enforcement of that has provisions in state law, and our state health officer has exercised that for a particular population here in Grand Forks. I'll tell you my experience with quarantine and isolation, and then I'll let the city attorney add to it if he would like to add more to it. We have had some experience with issuing orders on an individual basis to individuals in a past TB outbreak. And we found that once we utilized the legal process, it really got attention, and people obliged and paid attention to it and did what they needed to do to stay home and complete. It was really more of a case of completing treatment at that point. So there is provision for it. I'll let the city attorney speak to how it might be applied in this situation. As a health department, we are constantly monitoring people, so we get information from them about, are they staying home and what are they doing? And we're hearing already that people are reporting individuals that they know aren't maintaining it. So that's what I can tell you about how we will enforce it. Certainly there may be a law enforcement component to it.
Mr. Swanson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about the enforcement of an order issued by the state health officer. In order to enforce that, if you wish to go into district court for a misdemeanor charge, that would be prosecuted through the state's attorney's office. We may consider, which we've done in a previous incident, issuing an order directly naming particular persons from the local health officer. We would then have a little more flexibility on our enforcement, including a civil commitment type procedure where we get an order from a district court judge requiring that specifically named individual to remain in isolation. That has a little more teeth in it than simply the state health officer's generic orders or class orders. One of the difficulties in enforcing the class order, for example, the order that recently came out, is you would have to establish, number one, that this individual was covered by the order. So you'd have to show that they are in fact an LM employee and that they were on the date that the order was issued. So that's an extra component that fits into any prosecution or enforcement. That's why I've had discussions very recently with the state's attorney on how we would consider approaching that. And I think we may use different approaches depending upon the need and the circumstances as they arise.